My stepmom Linda told me there was no room for me this Christmas. She said it with a smile, standing in the doorway of my childhood home like she owned every brick. Marcus, honey, we just don't have space this year. The guest rooms are full. Family is coming. You understand, right? Maybe you could sleep in the garage? I looked past her into the house Dad and I built together, the one Mom decorated before she died. I saw new furniture, new paint, everything Mom loved erased. My old bedroom window showed pink curtains now. Linda's daughter Brittany lived there. I was 26, home from my engineering job in Seattle for the holidays. This was supposed to be our first Christmas since Mom passed 2 years ago, where I felt ready to celebrate again. I looked at Linda's face, at that fake concern, and I smiled. Sure, Linda. I understand completely. I turned and walked to my rental car. She called after me, something about not being dramatic, about being reasonable. I didn't look back. I kept walking. I drove to a hotel downtown, checked in, and sat on the bed staring at my phone. Then I made 3 phone calls. By Christmas morning, everything would change. Everything Linda built on lies would crumble. Dad would finally see the truth. Let me tell you how we got here. Dad married Linda 18 months after Mom died. Too fast, everyone said, but Dad was lonely. I understood that. Grief does strange things to people. What I didn't understand was how quickly Linda started erasing Mom from our lives. Photo albums disappeared first. Then Mom's garden got paved over for a hot tub Linda said would help Dad relax. The recipe box Mom kept for 30 years vanished one day. When I asked about it, Linda said she was updating the kitchen, and those old recipes were outdated. Dad said nothing. He just stared at his plate during dinner, getting quieter each month. His eyes looked empty, like someone had turned off a light inside him. Linda brought Brittany, her 22-year-old daughter from her first marriage. Brittany treated our house like a hotel. She didn't work, didn't go to school, just spent Dad's money on clothes and trips with friends. Linda also had a son, Derek, 28, who visited monthly with his hand out for loans he never repaid. Dad paid every time without question. I watched my father, Richard Chen, a man who built his construction company from nothing, become a ghost in his own home. The man who taught me to stand up for myself couldn't stand up for his own life. The 3 phone calls I made from that hotel room were simple but strategic. First, I called my Uncle James, Dad's older brother. James, I need you to come to Dad's house Christmas morning. Bring Aunt Susan. Don't tell Dad you're coming. James knew something was wrong. He'd seen the changes too, watched his brother disappear into Linda's control. What's going on, Marcus? Is Richard okay? Just trust me. 9 a.m. Christmas morning. It's important. I could hear the concern in his voice, but he agreed. Second call went to my mom's best friend, Patricia. She'd known my parents for 30 years, was at their wedding, held my hand at Mom's funeral when I couldn't stop crying. Patricia, I need a favor. Remember Mom's recipe box? Her voice got quiet, emotional. Linda said she threw it away, said it was cluttered. She didn't throw it away. She sold it at a yard sale. I bought it back from the neighbor who purchased it for $5. I need you to bring something Christmas morning. Patricia understood immediately. She'd been waiting for someone to challenge Linda. Third call was to my lawyer, Tom Richardson. Yes, I had a lawyer ready. I'd been preparing for 6 months, ever since I realized what Linda was really doing. Tom, it's time. Christmas morning. Bring everything. 6 months ago, I came home for Dad's birthday in June. I arrived early, wanting to surprise him with breakfast. I let myself in with my key, the one Linda didn't know I still had, because she'd asked Dad to collect all copies. I heard voices in Dad's office, low and secretive. The door was cracked open just enough. I heard Linda talking to someone on speakerphone. The house is worth $1.2 million. Once Richard adds my name to the deed, we can refinance. Take out $500,000. He'll never notice. He barely reads what he signs anymore. A man's voice responded, professional and cold. What about the son? Marcus. Marcus, he lives in Seattle, hardly visits anymore. By the time he figures anything out, the money will be safely in the Caymans. Richard's got maybe 10, 15 years left if we're lucky. We'll be set for life. My blood went cold. I stood frozen in the hallway, phone in my hand. I started recording. I captured 15 minutes of Linda and her accountant planning to drain my father's assets systematically. They discussed fake contractors, shell companies, offshore accounts, everything. That day, I started documenting everything I could find. Bank statements Dad accidentally left out, property records I requested from the county. I hired a private investigator named Michael Torres. What we found was worse than I imagined, deeper and darker than one conversation. Linda had been married 3 times before Dad, not once like she'd told him. Each marriage ended with the husband broke and Linda richer, moving on to the next target. She targeted widowers specifically, men with assets and grief they couldn't process. Her pattern was simple and effective. Move in fast, isolate them from family, gain financial control, drain accounts, disappear before anyone noticed. Husband number 1, a retired dentist named Paul in Portland, lost his practice building to her. He died 2 years later, broken and alone. Husband number 2, a small business owner named Frank in Spokane, filed bankruptcy after Linda left. He lost everything, including his relationship with his children who tried to warn him. Husband number 3, a pharmacist named John, was still fighting her in court over his pension. He'd hired lawyers, but Linda was always one step ahead. None of them saw it coming because Linda was careful, patient, and methodical. She played the loving wife while systematically transferring assets using legal documents they signed without reading. The investigator found something else that made my stomach turn. Linda had convinced Dad to make her power of attorney 6 months into their marriage. She told him it was for emergencies, in case he got sick. She had access to everything now. His business accounts, his retirement, the house, his life savings, everything Mom and Dad built together over 35 years of marriage. I spent 6 months building an airtight case against Linda. I couldn't just tell Dad what I knew. I'd tried that once, carefully suggesting Linda might not have his best interests in mind. Linda had him convinced I was jealous of his new happiness, that I couldn't accept Mom was gone and he'd moved on. Every time I questioned something Linda did, she played victim perfectly. Marcus is so angry with me, she'd tell Dad with tears in her eyes. I'm trying so hard to make this family work, to honor Catherine's memory, but he hates me. Dad would look at me disappointed, hurt. Son, give her a chance. I know you miss your mother. God knows I do too. But Linda makes me happy. She takes care of me. Can't you be happy for me? Can't you let me have some joy? How do you tell your father he's being conned when the con artist has convinced him you're the problem? You can't. Not with words. You have to show him with evidence he can't deny. That's why I needed Christmas morning. That's why I needed witnesses he trusted. That's why everything had to be perfect and undeniable. Tom Richardson, my lawyer, helped me prepare documents that would be irrefutable. Bank records showing the transfers with dates and amounts. Corporate filings showing Linda's shell companies. Depositions from her ex-husbands willing to testify. Photos of the Cayman accounts Michael found. Everything organized in folders, undeniable and clear. Christmas Eve, I sat in that hotel room and thought about Mom. Catherine Chen died of cancer 2 years ago after fighting for 18 months. Dad and I were with her every single day, holding her hand, reading to her, making sure she knew she wasn't alone. Toward the end, when the morphine made her drift in and out, she made me promise something. I was holding her hand, feeling how thin it had become. Marcus, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Take care of your father. He's going to be lost without me. We've been together since we were 20. He won't know how to be alone. Don't let him do anything stupid. Watch over him for me. I held her hand tighter, trying not to cry. I promise, Mom, I'll take care of him. She smiled, squeezed my hand with what little strength she had left. You're a good son. You're everything we hoped you'd be. Those were almost her last words to me. She died 3 days later with Dad and me on either side of her bed. I'd failed that promise by letting Linda into our lives, by not seeing the danger until she'd already sunk her claws deep. But I was fixing it now. I was honoring Mom's request, even if it was late. I ordered room service, ate alone while watching Christmas movies, and reviewed the plan one more time. Every detail had to be perfect. No room for error. Linda was smart and slippery. This was my one chance. Christmas morning, I woke at 6 feeling nervous and determined. I showered, dressed in the suit Mom bought me for my college graduation 7 years ago, and drove slowly to Dad's house. I parked down the street where Linda wouldn't see my rental car if she looked out the window. At exactly 9 a.m., Uncle James texted me. "We're here." Linda answered the door. "She looks confused, but she's letting us in." Susan brought cinnamon rolls. At 9:10, Patricia texted. "Arriving now. I have everything you asked for. The recipe box, the photo albums, everything." At 9:15, Tom Richardson's black sedan pulled up to the curb. I watched him get out, straighten his tie, and walk to the door carrying his leather briefcase. Linda would be panicking now. 3 unexpected guests Christmas morning, all arriving within minutes of each other. She'd know something was wrong, but wouldn't know what. At 9:30, I got out of my car and walked slowly toward the house I grew up in. The house where Mom taught me to ride a bike in the driveway, where Dad and I built a tree house that still stood in the backyard, where we'd had birthday parties and Thanksgivings and normal family life. The house Linda was trying to steal. I rang the doorbell, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Through the frosted glass, I saw Linda's face go completely white. She knew. Somehow, she knew this wasn't a normal family visit. Dad opened the door, and my heart broke. He looked older than 3 months ago when I'd last seen him at Thanksgiving. His hair was grayer, thinner. His face was gaunt, like he'd lost 20 pounds. His eyes had dark circles underneath. He wore the navy sweater Mom gave him their last Christmas together, the one Linda said made him look old and tried to throw away. "Marcus, what's going on? Why is everyone here?" His voice was confused, worried. Behind him, I saw Uncle James and Aunt Susan sitting on the couch that used to be Mom's favorite floral pattern, but was now leather and modern. Patricia stood by the fireplace holding a large cardboard box carefully. Tom Richardson sat in Dad's old recliner, with his briefcase open on his lap, papers visible. Brittany was on the stairs in designer pajamas, looking annoyed at being awake. Derek stood in the kitchen doorway drinking coffee. Linda was next to Dad, her hand possessively on his arm, that fake sweet smile plastered on her face. "Merry Christmas, Dad," I said, my voice steady. "We need to talk. All of us. As a family." "Marcus, this is completely inappropriate," Linda started, her voice sharp. "Your father and I were about to open presents with our family. You can't just show up unannounced with people and disrupt our holiday." "Our family," I repeated slowly, looking directly at her. "That's interesting, Linda, because last night you told me there was no room for me here. Remember, you said I should sleep in the garage like a dog." Dad's face changed completely, shock replacing confusion. "She said what? Marcus, is that true?" "It's not like that, Richard," Linda jumped in quickly, her voice taking on that victim tone she used so well. "I explained we had guests coming, that space was limited, that the rooms were all full. Marcus is being dramatic like always. He's twisting my words." "I have the text messages," I said, pulling out my phone and holding it up. "Would you like me to read them out loud? I can show everyone exactly what you said." Linda's jaw tightened, her mask slipping for just a second. "Marcus, why are you doing this? Why are you trying to ruin Christmas? It's a holiday. Can't we just be a family? You're right, it's Christmas, Mom's favorite holiday," I said, walking into the living room, the one where she spent weeks baking cookies and making everything perfect for people she loved. "So I brought some of those people here, Uncle James, Aunt Susan, Patricia, people who actually loved Mom and Dad, who care about this family." I looked around at everyone watching, and I brought some things that went missing. Things Linda said were thrown away or damaged. "Patricia, would you like to show Dad what you have?" Patricia stepped forward and opened the cardboard box carefully. She pulled out Mom's recipe box first, the wooden one with hand-painted flowers on the lid. Dad gasped audibly, his hand going to his chest. "Kathy's recipes. Linda, you said you threw these away. You said they were taking up space and outdated." "I found them at a yard sale 3 blocks from here," Patricia said quietly, her voice shaking with emotion. "Mrs. Henderson bought them for $5. She recognized Catherine's handwriting and called me. She knew something was wrong." Patricia pulled out photo albums next, 4 of them, leather-bound and worn. These were at Goodwill on Miller Street. I check there every single month, hoping to find pieces of Catherine that Linda disposed of. I've recovered 12 albums so far. 12 albums of your life together, Richard. Dad took one with trembling hands, opened it carefully, and saw pictures of Mom pregnant with me, their wedding day, family vacations. Our life before cancer destroyed everything. His hands shook so badly he almost dropped it. Linda told me these were damaged in a flood in the basement. She said they were completely unsalvageable, that she'd tried to save them but couldn't. There was no flood, I said clearly. Linda wanted Mom erased, every trace, every memory, every piece of evidence that you had a life before her. So you'd forget your old life and focus only on her and her children. That's absolutely ridiculous, Linda snapped, her voice rising. Richard, he's trying to turn you against me. This is what he's been doing since we got married. He's jealous and bitter. Let him talk, Dad said, his voice different now. Stronger, clearer, more like the father I remembered. I want to hear what my son has to say. I want to hear everything. So I told him. I told him about the conversation I overheard 6 months ago in his office. I pulled out my phone and played the recording. Linda's voice filled the room, cold and calculating. Dad's face went through stages as he listened. Shock first, his eyes widening, then anger, his jaw clenching, then something worse than both. Betrayal, pure, devastating betrayal. The recording played Linda's voice clearly. He barely reads what he signs anymore. The money will be in the Caymans. He's got maybe 10, 15 years left. When it finished, the room was completely silent. You were going to steal everything, Dad said, his voice hollow. You were waiting for me to die. Richard, no, that recording is edited, Linda said desperately. It's taken out of context. Marcus is lying. He hired someone to fake it. This is all manipulation. I have bank records, Tom Richardson said, standing up with professional authority. I'm Marcus's attorney. I've been reviewing your accounts for the past 6 months with your son's authorization. Mrs. Chen, or should I say Mrs. Mercer, you've transferred nearly $400,000 from your husband's business account to shell corporations you control. Chen Building Group is currently 3 months from bankruptcy. That's normal business operations, Linda tried, but her voice was wavering now. Regular expenses. Contractor payments. Payments to contractors who don't exist. Tom laid out documents systematically on the coffee table. These 5 companies all list the same address. A P.O. box in Reno, Nevada. They're all registered to you under your maiden name, Linda Mercer. The invoices are completely fake. The work was never done. I verified with the county. No permits, no inspections, nothing. Derek stepped forward from the kitchen, his face pale. Mom, what did you do? Tell me this isn't real. Shut up, Derek, Linda hissed at her son, her mask completely gone now. Uncle James stood up slowly, his face red with anger. Richard, I've been worried about you for over a year. You stopped coming to family dinners, stopped returning my calls. Your secretary told me you weren't taking meetings with me. I thought maybe you were depressed after Kathy died, that you needed space. Now I see Linda was systematically isolating you from everyone who cared about you. It's called elder abuse, Tom said in his lawyer voice. Financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. In this state, it's a Class B felony carrying up to 10 years in prison. I'm 62 years old, Dad said, looking confused. I'm not elderly. I'm not vulnerable. But you were grieving, I said gently, stepping closer to him. Linda targeted you specifically when you were at your weakest point. When you missed Mom so much, you couldn't think straight, couldn't see clearly. She saw an opportunity in your pain. Dad sat down heavily on the couch, his legs seeming to give out. The power of attorney. She asked me to sign it 6 months after we married. Said it was just for emergencies, so she could handle things if I got sick or had an accident. She cried when she asked, said she was worried about my health. She's been using it to drain your accounts systematically, Tom said, pulling out more papers. I have evidence of transfers going back 14 months, almost from the day you signed the marriage certificate. Over $400,000 moved in small increments, designed not to trigger automatic fraud alerts. Linda's face changed completely. The mask dropped entirely. The sweet, concerned wife disappeared like smoke. What replaced it was cold calculation and barely contained rage. You can't prove intent, Linda said, her voice hard now. I'm his wife. I have every legal right to manage our finances. That's what wives do. Actually, you don't have that right, Tom said with a slight smile. Because the marriage isn't legal. Everyone froze. The room went completely silent. You could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the corner. "What?" Dad whispered, his voice barely audible. Tom pulled out another document, this one with official seals. Linda Chen never legally divorced husband number 3. Her marriage to John Delacroix in Portland was never properly dissolved. She filed initial papers, but never completed the process. The divorce was never finalized. That makes her marriage to you bigamy, which is illegal. Your marriage is legally void. She has absolutely no legal claim to any of your assets, your property, or your accounts. Linda moved toward the door quickly. Derek grabbed her arm hard. "Mom, tell me this isn't true. Tell me you didn't do this. Let go of me right now," Linda said through clenched teeth. "You destroyed this man's life," Derek said, his voice breaking with emotion. "Just like you destroyed my father's life. Just like you destroyed every man you've ever married. I'm done, Mom. I'm completely done with your schemes." He let her go, but stood blocking the door with his body. Brittany came down the stairs slowly, crying silently. "I didn't know," she said, looking at Dad. "I swear to God I didn't know what she was doing. Not all of it." Linda looked at her daughter with contempt. "Brittany, we're leaving. Right now. Get your things." "No," Brittany said, her voice stronger than I'd ever heard it. "I'm not doing this anymore, Mom. I'm not watching you hurt innocent people for money." "I gave you everything," Linda said, her voice venomous. "Every luxury, every opportunity." "You gave me guilt," Brittany shouted, tears streaming down her face. "You made me help you lie to these people. You moved me into Marcus's bedroom, into a dead woman's son's room, like his mother never even existed. Do you know how that felt, sleeping in that room while you systematically stole from her husband? I felt sick every single day." Dad looked at Brittany, really looked at her. "You knew what she was doing?" "I suspected," Brittany whispered, wiping her eyes. "I saw some bank transfers on papers she left out. Mom said it was complicated business stuff that I wouldn't understand. I wanted to believe her because she's my mother, but deep down, I knew. I'm so sorry, Mr. Chen. I should have said something." Police sirens wailed outside, getting closer. Everyone turned toward the window. Tom Richardson smiled slightly, professionally. "I called them about 20 minutes ago when I arrived. Once Linda made several incriminating statements that I witnessed, I had enough probable cause for charges." 2 police officers came to the front door. Uncle James opened it, stepping aside. They were both older officers, experienced. "Linda Mercer?" the taller officer said, looking around the room. "That's my legal name," Linda said, her voice steady now. "Resigned. The fight gone. Linda Mercer, you're under arrest for fraud, grand theft, elder abuse, and bigamy. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." They handcuffed her efficiently. Linda looked at Dad one final time, her eyes cold. "Richard, you were so easy. All that grief, all that loneliness, all that pathetic weakness. You practically begged to be taken advantage of. You made it simple." Dad flinched like she'd physically hit him. The officers led Linda out through the front door. Through the window, I watched them put her in the back of the patrol car, her head ducked down. Neighbors stood on their lawns in Christmas pajamas, watching the show. Christmas morning entertainment they'd talk about for years. Derek stood frozen in the kitchen, staring at nothing. Brittany sat on the stairs, crying into her hands. Dad stared at the floor, his whole body trembling. After the police left, the house was oppressively silent. Nobody knew what to say or do. Everyone was processing what just happened. Uncle James finally spoke, his voice gentle. "Richard, you need to pack a bag. You're staying with us tonight. You shouldn't be alone here." "This is my house," Dad said without looking up. "I built this house. I'm not leaving it." "Dad," I said gently, kneeling in front of him, "you need to get away from here for a little while. Clear your head. Process everything." "Everything I knew was a lie," he said, his voice breaking. "My whole life for the past 18 months. I let a stranger into the home I built with your mother. I let her erase Catherine like she never existed. What kind of man does that?" "A grieving man," I said firmly. "A man who was lonely and manipulated by a professional con artist." "Mom's not gone," I continued. "She's in those recipe boxes Patricia saved, in those photo albums, in that sweater you're wearing that Linda tried to throw away. In me. Linda couldn't erase that, no matter how hard she tried." Dad looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in months. When did you get so smart and strong? Mom taught me, I said. And you did too, before you forgot who you were. Aunt Susan came over, putting her hand on Dad's shoulder. Richard, James is right. Come stay with us, just for a few days while Marcus starts sorting things here. You need family around you. Dad nodded slowly, exhausted. Okay, just for a few days. Derek approached us cautiously. Mr. Chen, I'm so sorry. I should have said something months ago. I knew my mother was wrong. I just kept taking the money she gave me. That makes me complicit in what she did. Dad looked at him with surprising gentleness. What are you going to do now? Get a real job, a legitimate one. Pay you back somehow, even if it takes me 20 years. You can start by testifying against her, Tom Richardson said. Your testimony as her son would help ensure she serves real prison time. Derek nodded firmly. Whatever you need, I'll tell them everything I know. Brittany stood up, wiping her face. I'll testify too. I have text messages from her on my phone, instructions about hiding documents, lying about finances. I saved everything because something felt wrong in my gut. Why didn't you tell someone sooner? I asked, not angry, just genuinely curious. She's my mom, Brittany said simply. I kept thinking maybe I was wrong about her. Maybe it was legitimate business. And honestly, I liked the lifestyle. The money, the nice house, the car she bought me. I'm deeply ashamed. Being ashamed means you have a conscience. Aunt Susan said kindly. That's a good start toward making things right. Patricia hugged Dad tightly. Catherine would be so proud of Marcus. He protected you just like she asked him to. Over the next week, the full story emerged piece by piece. Linda had planned everything with meticulous precision. She'd researched Dad extensively online after Mom's obituary ran in the newspaper. She knew about his company, his assets, his net worth, his vulnerability. She joined Dad's grief support group at the community center specifically to meet him, sitting near him deliberately. Their chance meeting at the coffee shop afterward was completely orchestrated. She'd studied Mom's obituary carefully to understand what kind of woman Dad loved, then played that role perfectly. Kind, supportive, understanding, interested in his stories. Until she had legal access to his money. Then the mask came off slowly, so gradually, Dad didn't notice until he was completely under her control. The investigators found she'd done this to 7 men total, not 3 like we initially thought. 4 others never reported it, too embarrassed to admit they'd been conned by a woman. Linda had stolen over $3 million in total across 20 years. She had accounts in 3 different countries. She'd planned to disappear in 6 months with Dad's money and start over somewhere new with a new identity. Probably find husband number 5. Dad got therapy immediately. Real therapy, not the grief counseling, where Linda had found him. He started seeing Dr. Sarah Kim twice a week, a psychologist who specialized in helping abuse victims recover. You were absolutely a victim, Dr. Kim told him in a session I attended with his permission. Financial abuse, emotional abuse, isolation, gaslighting. These are classic patterns of predatory behavior. I should have seen it, Dad said, his voice filled with self-blame. I'm not a stupid man. You were grieving the loss of your wife of 35 years, Dr. Kim said firmly. She's a professional predator. This is literally what she does for a living. She's been perfecting these techniques for 2 decades. Dad spent hours at Uncle James's house going through Mom's things that Patricia had recovered over the months. The recipe box sat on the kitchen table like a sacred object. Dad opened it one afternoon while I was visiting. His hands shook. Your mother wrote notes in the margins of every recipe, he said, pulling out the chocolate chip cookie card. See, she wrote, Marcus's favorite since age 4, always triple the chips or he complains. I smiled, remembering. She always did triple them. I forgot that, Dad said, his voice thick. I forgot so many little things while Linda was in the house. It's like I was asleep, like I was underwater and couldn't breathe. You were surviving, I said. Now you're waking up. Dad pulled out another card, the Thanksgiving turkey recipe. Every single year your mother made this turkey. It took her 2 full days of preparation. She brined it overnight, made her own stuffing from scratch. Linda ordered catering last Thanksgiving, said homemade was too much work, that nobody cared. He started crying then, really crying for the first time since Mom's funeral. Deep, wrenching sobs. Tom Richardson worked tirelessly on recovering Dad's money. The shell companies Linda created were systematically dissolved. About $230,000 was recovered from accounts she hadn't moved yet to the Caymans. The rest was tied up in international legal proceedings that would take years. Dad's company, Chen Building Group, was barely salvaged. Tom found an excellent financial manager named Margaret Wong to audit everything and restructure the business completely. Dad had to take a substantial loan against the house to keep the business running and pay employees, but we'd survive. It would take time, but we'd rebuild. Derek kept his word completely. He got a job at a warehouse, started paying Dad back $50 every single week without fail. It was almost nothing compared to what Linda stole, but it was about principle and redemption. Brittany moved out of Dad's house, got her own tiny apartment, enrolled in community college to study accounting. She texted me sometimes, always the same message: "I'm sorry." I never responded. I didn't hate her, but I couldn't forget she lived in my childhood bedroom while Linda destroyed my father. Uncle James and Aunt Susan hosted weekly family dinners every Sunday. Dad came every single time, never missed once. He was different now, quieter and more careful, but also more present and engaged. He asked about my job in Seattle, about my life, about my girlfriend. He remembered stories about Mom and told them freely. He laughed sometimes. He was slowly coming back to himself. 3 months after Christmas, Linda's trial began. I took 2 weeks off work to attend every single day. Dad didn't want to go initially, but I convinced him he needed to see it through, to face what happened. She looked completely different in court. No expensive designer clothes, no professional makeup. Just an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs. Her hair was pulled back severely. Her lawyer tried arguing she'd been a good wife, that the money transfers were legitimate business operations, that this was a misunderstanding. Tom Richardson destroyed every single argument in under 20 minutes. The recording I made played in court. Linda's voice discussing the Cayman accounts, the refinancing plan, waiting for Dad to die. The jury heard her cold calculation, her complete lack of remorse. He'll never notice. He barely reads what he signs anymore. Ex-husbands testified, all of them. Each one described the exact same pattern. Love bombing at first, seeming perfect, then gradual isolation from family and friends, financial control, gaslighting, systematic theft. One man, the pharmacist John, broke down completely on the stand, describing how Linda convinced him his own children were stealing from him, turned him against his family for 2 years, then drained his retirement. "I didn't see my daughter for 5 years because I believed Linda's lies," he said, sobbing. "My daughter tried desperately to warn me. I called her a liar and a thief. She was trying to save me, and I pushed her away." Derek testified against his mother. He was calm, factual, devastating in his testimony. "My mother told me when I was 16 years old that men were wallets with legs. She said our job as her children was to extract maximum value from them. She's been running this exact con my entire conscious life. I helped her because I was raised to think it was completely normal." Brittany testified too, bringing printed text messages, emails, recorded phone calls. Linda had been sloppy with her own daughter, saying things she'd never say to anyone else. "Find out the exact house value. Tell Richard you're worried about estate planning for his sake. Get him emotional. Then slide the papers in front of him while he's distracted." The jury deliberated for exactly 4 hours. Guilty on all counts: fraud, elder abuse, grand theft, bigamy, money laundering. The judge, an older woman who'd clearly seen everything, gave her 12 years in federal prison. She'd be 71 years old when released, if she lived that long. Linda showed absolutely no emotion when the sentence came down. She just stared straight ahead at nothing. But when they led her away in chains, she turned her head and looked directly at Dad one final time. "I could have made you happy, Richard. If you'd just been a little less pathetically in love with a dead woman, we could have had something real." Dad didn't respond. He just took my hand, and we walked out of that courthouse together into the sunshine. 6 months after the trial concluded, Dad finally moved back into his house permanently. We spent 2 full weeks cleaning it together, reclaiming it. Uncle James helped with the heavy work. We repainted every single room, Mom's original colors that Linda had covered. We pulled up the expensive carpet Linda installed, and refinished the original hardwood floors Mom loved, the ones she'd picked out 30 years ago. We replanted Mom's garden in the backyard. Roses, peonies, lavender, exactly how she'd designed it. Patricia gave us seedlings from plants she'd secretly rescued and kept alive. The hot tub Linda installed got removed completely. The backyard looked like Mom's sacred space again. Dad's bedroom was the hardest room to reclaim. Linda had redecorated it completely in modern grey and white. We boxed absolutely everything, donated most of it to charity. Dad found Mom's wedding ring in Linda's jewelry box, which police had returned after the trial. She'd been wearing it on a chain around her neck, hidden under her shirt where no one could see. Dad held that ring for a very long time, just staring at it. "I'm going to make something with this," he said finally. "Something to remember her properly, to honor her." He had a jeweler create a custom pendant. Mom's ring was melted down carefully and reformed into a small phoenix rising. "Rising from ashes," Dad said when he showed me the finished piece. "That's what we're doing. That's what Catherine would want." He wore it every single day after that, never took it off. One year after that terrible Christmas, we hosted a dinner at Dad's house. Uncle James and Aunt Susan came. Patricia brought her husband. Derek came, nervous but genuine. He'd been paying Dad back religiously every week, never missed once, got promoted at his warehouse job to supervisor. Brittany asked if she could come. I thought about it and said yes. She brought her report card from community college. All A's in accounting classes. "I'm studying accounting," she said quietly. "I want to help people protect their money from predators like my mother." Dad surprised everyone by hugging her. "Your mother made her choices. You're making completely different ones. I'm proud of you for that." We made dinner entirely from Mom's recipes. Turkey with her special brine, stuffing, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, homemade rolls, everything from the recipe box. Patricia and Aunt Susan directed us like cooking instructors. Catherine always added extra butter right here. She'd put a bay leaf in the gravy at this exact moment. Dad insisted on setting Mom's place at the table. Empty chair, empty plate, her favorite wine glass. She should be here with us. "She is here," I said, looking around at the family gathered. After dinner, Dad asked everyone to stay in the living room. "I have something important to say to all of you." We gathered together, curious. "This year broke me completely," Dad started. "I lost my wife to cancer. Then I lost myself to someone who saw my grief as nothing but opportunity for profit. My son saved me. Marcus, you kept your promise to your mother. You protected me when I couldn't protect myself from my own poor judgment. I updated my will officially," Dad continued. "Marcus gets everything when I'm gone. The house, the business, all of it. But more importantly, I'm making major changes right now while I'm still alive. I'm stepping back from active management of the company, promoting my operations manager Janet to CEO. I'm going to travel like Kathy and I always planned. I'm going to live fully, going to honor her memory by not wasting whatever time I have left." He pulled out a small velvet box. "Marcus, your mother and I bought something when you graduated high school. We were planning to give it to you when you got married someday. I think right now is the right time." Inside was a beautiful watch, expensive and classic. Engraved on the back, "To Marcus, time is precious. Use it wisely. Love always, Mom and Dad." I couldn't speak, couldn't find any words. Dad hugged me tightly. "I'm sorry I let her into our lives. I'm sorry I chose my grief over common sense. I'm sorry I almost lost you forever." "You didn't lose me," I managed to say. "I'm right here. I always will be. Only because you refused to give up on your stubborn old man." We stood there, father and son, in the house we'd reclaimed together, surrounded by people who genuinely loved us. Outside the window, I could see the garden Mom planted decades ago, blooming again in full color. Linda took 1 year from us. She took money and peace and trust. But she didn't take everything that mattered. She didn't take our memories. She didn't take our family. She didn't take the love Mom built into every corner of this house. I looked at Dad and saw him really smile for the first time since Mom died. Not the fake smile he gave Linda, a real one that reached his eyes. We survived. That's what I'd tell Mom if she could hear me somehow. We survived, and we're going to be better than okay.